Some wounds don't bleed. Some don't leave marks anyone can see. Some wounds are made entirely of silence, the comfort that never came, the feelings that were never asked about, the child who learned, slowly and without a single word, that their inner world didn't matter enough to anyone to explore. And that silence doesn't stay in childhood. It follows people, quietly, for decades. Most people understand what abuse looks like. What emotional neglect looks like is harder to explain because it isn't about what happened. It's about what never did. It's the parent who is physically present, but emotionally somewhere else entirely. The child who ran home excited to share something and watched that excitement land in an empty room, even when the room was full of people. The tears that were met with, "You're fine," instead of, "Tell me what's wrong." The feelings that were inconvenient, dismissed, redirected, not out of cruelty, but out of absence. Do that enough times to a developing mind, and the child draws a quiet conclusion. Not in words, in wiring. My emotions are too much. My needs make people uncomfortable. It's safer to feel nothing than to feel and be alone in it. Here's what that does to a brain still learning what the world is. The nervous system, which is meant to develop a sense of safety through consistent emotional response, instead builds itself around unpredictability. Warmth was unreliable, so the child stops expecting it. Connection came with conditions, so closeness starts to feel dangerous. The attachment system, which is supposed to wire a child to reach toward people in moments of pain, quietly rewires itself to reach inward instead. Alone became safer than vulnerable. Self-sufficiency wasn't a choice. It was the only option that didn't end in disappointment. And then that child grows up. They become someone who never asks for help, not because they don't need it, but because needing things once felt like a burden nobody wanted to carry. They become perfectionists, because somewhere deep in early memory, love felt conditional on performance. They become the person everyone leans on, endlessly patient, endlessly giving, while quietly starving for the same thing they so freely offer others. They feel guilt for taking up space. They apologize for having feelings. They are convinced, in some wordless, bone-deep way, that they are simply too much and never enough, simultaneously. These aren't personality flaws. They are survival strategies that outlived the environment that created them. Here's what rarely gets said about these people, though. The ones who grew up having to read emotional rooms alone often become extraordinarily perceptive. They notice what others feel before a word is spoken. They carry a depth of empathy that comes from having needed it so badly themselves. They understand pain quietly, without making it dramatic, because they spent years learning to hold their own pain without a sound. The emotional intelligence they developed wasn't taught. It was earned, in the loneliest way possible. But there's a cost. When you spend a lifetime attuned to everyone else's emotional world while treating your own as irrelevant, you eventually lose the ability to locate yourself inside your own life. You know exactly how everyone around you feels. You have almost no idea how you feel. And the moment someone actually asks, someone safe, someone who genuinely wants to know, you feel an unexpected rush of something that isn't quite sadness and isn't quite relief. It's the shock of being seen in a place you were invisible for so long. Healing doesn't begin with a dramatic realization. It begins with something smaller and more terrifying, deciding that your feelings deserve to exist, not to be explained, not to be justified, just to exist without apology. It begins with naming what you feel instead of burying it, asking for one small thing instead of shrinking again, building new evidence, slowly, through new relationships and new moments, that closeness doesn't always have to end in abandonment. The wound was real. The silence was real. But silence, unlike stone, can be broken. And healing begins the moment you finally decide that what you feel has always deserved to be heard.